down so we can actually do the sophisticated intro here with our professionally designed Kids Rock Review logo.
By Jeff Brown.
So, before I get started, welcome to another episode of Kids Rock Review. Before I get started, after tonight's show, go on Facebook, look up Kids Rock Review, and I believe on Facebook it's like and follow, and then I go on YouTube, and I think it's like and subscribe, or it's the other way around, something like that. And so today's topic is going to be Canadian music artists that didn't make it big in the United States. So we got our Canadian flag, and as you see, I'm wearing a shirt by Rush. But I figure if I'm going to be talking about Canada, I can't just wear a Rush t-shirt. I've got to wear a hockey jersey, right? But it even says Kip. It even says Hutchinson on it. So, because, you know, hockey in Canada, you know, So, and this hockey jersey is from the Calgary Flames, and he has a Canadian flag on it. So, I said I'm going to talk about Canadian music artists that didn't make it big in the United States. So, I'll tell you who I'm not going to talk about. There's not going to be any Neil Young. There's not going to be any The Band. Not going to be any Gordon Lightfoot. Nor Bachman Turner Overdrive or the Guess Who. Or not even Alanis Morissette or Bryan Adams. I'm making my notes out here so I can read them and not have to turn around. So these artists were big in Canada, not necessarily big in the United States. And part of the reason is in Canada they have a law called the Broadcast Act, which Canadian radio stations have to play 40% of their content has to be by Canadian artists. And so that does two things. One, all those big Canadian artists like Neil Young, Alanis Morissette, or The Band, they get a lot more playing time in Canada because the radio stations have to play more of them. It also means that local Canadian artists get more playing time. I almost kind of wish that there was a local New York law that local bands had to get so much playing time on radio stations. But there isn't. And I know a lot of these because I don't know if a lot of you know this, but I lived in Canada during the 94-95 academic school year. I went to graduate school there for a year, and I used to listen to CHEZ 106, Canada's classic, or Ottawa's classic rock. That's where I got a lot of these bands from. So we're going to start. So the first band is these guys. I would ask hands up if anybody knows who they are, but I can't really see through the Facebook page. These guys are Saga. Does anyone remember Saga?
I do.
You do. I had forgotten that Saga had a hit in the U.S.
Yes, we did.
Called On the Loose. I forgot all about that, and I was driving back from Utica yesterday, and it was being played on Classic Rewind on Sirius XM. I forgot all about it, but that's their one hit in the U.S. They're actually from Oakville, Ontario. They were formed in '77, and the mainstays of the band, Michael Sadler on vocals and keyboards. Guitar is Ian Critton, and his brother is the bass and keyboard player, Jim Critton. And they sort of sound, the way I read about them, they're described as a prog rock band like Yes, or Genesis, or ELP. There's a lot of and I listened to a lot of this stuff over the week when I was getting ready. A lot of keyboard, a lot of synthesizers. If you like that 80s rock sound, Saga is for you. Not a lot of guitar, even though one of their mainstay members is a guitar player. A lot of 80-ish sounding keyboards. I would recommend, there are two albums of theirs that I would recommend for listening this week. The Worlds Apart, which has On the Loose on it, from '81. And the other one I would recommend is called The Works. It's sort of the greatest hits up to about 2000, 2010-ish. And it was weird because when I was doing this, I read one article that said they disbanded in 2018 and another article that said they got back together during COVID. So, who knows? But try them out. See if you like that 80-ish rock sound. Try out Saga. The next band, and I've heard this band on, does anyone know who this trio is? Anyone raising their hand out in Facebook land? This is Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush. I've actually heard them on Deep Tracks a few times. They're from Montreal. They formed in 1970. And Frank Marino, this guy right here, his playing has been compared to Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix-esque, they say it is. And apparently there's this urban myth that he was on an acid trip as a teenager, and Jimi Hendrix appeared to him and gave him his guitar. But he denies that. He says just a rumor. He never had an acid trip where Jimi Hendrix appeared to him. He describes the band's music, Frank. He describes it as a combination of the Grateful Dead and jazz. From what I listen to it, it's just a good hard rock with jam band thrown into it. So, if you like that type of hard rock jam band, sort of Government Mule-esque, Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush be for you. Unfortunately, I heard he was going to go on tour last year, and then he got canceled because of COVID. Then I heard he got sick and he had to retire. I think he has some MS. So, but their best album, from what I've gathered this week, is called Strange Universe from 1975. It's got some songs on it like Dear Music, Trying Anyway, Land of a Thousand Nights, and Tales of the Spanish Warrior. And the last two are supposedly very gothic. Another album you might want to check out is called Dragonfly, the best of Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush. So I said, hard rock, jam bandish type of thing, check them out. You can't see them on tour anymore, but you can still listen to their music. Next up, we got, this band wasn't around for very long, but they were really popular when I lived in Ottawa. They're called the Watchmen. They're from Winnipeg, and they formed in the late 80s, alternative grungy type of group, so that's why they were popular in the mid-90s when I was in Canada. Their biggest hit was called All Uncovered. It was from an album called In the Trees. This is what the album cover looks like. I still have this CD in my collection. All Uncovered was their big hit. Another song was Lusitania, which is about the sinking of the ship Lusitania right before World War I. Another big album they had was called Brand New Day. Incarnate was the big hit off that record. Officially they have disbanded. They don't make any new music anymore. They don't really tour anymore. But every so often they go play like a charity gig in their hometown of Winnipeg just to raise money for charity. So check out the Watchmen in the Trees or the Watchmen Brand New Day if you sort of like that grungy mid-90s rock sound. And it was really, trust me, it was all over Ottawa when I was living there. I don't know if anyone recognizes this guy. You actually might recognize this guy. His name is Gowan, and some of you might recognize him because he's currently a member of the band Stixx. He was a Canadian solo artist. He opened for Stixx in 1997, and then when Dennis DeYoung was either fired or left Stixx, they asked him to become the new keyboard singer for Stixx. Tommy Shaw did. But before he joined Stixx, he had his own little solo career going on in Canada. He had several hit songs, Moonlight Desires, Criminal Mind, and Stixx actually plays that song in concert now. My favorite song that he did was called Dancing on My Own Ground from his album Call Me Larry, because his real name is Lawrence Gowan. But so these are the albums I would recommend. You can Call Me Larry by Lawrence Gowan, and Strange Animals, which has Criminal Mind on it. So, like your 80s Stixx sort of sounding musician. Next up, we're going to go to Atlantic Canada. These guys right here. These guys are Great Big Sea. They're from Newfoundland, St. John's, Newfoundland. Formed in the early 90s. They were originally a bar band, but then they started playing the Newfoundlandish Atlantic Canadian folk music in a rock sense, and sort of the sea chanties that the fishermen would sing, made it put them in rock arrangements, and they started getting famous because of that. So their biggest hit was When I'm Up, I Can't Get Down, and that was from an album called Up, which conveniently looks like that. And they were around for about 20 years. I just found out they disbanded. And they had this album, it's called, as you can see, it says Double X. It's actually not Double X. It's Roman numeral 20. It was supposed to be the album for their 20th anniversary, but then one of the members left and the band decided not to continue after that. But if you sort of like that folk rock sound, Great Big Sea, especially if you like sort of like the sea chanties, the traditional folk Irish music, Great Big Sea might be for you. The next one is another, this guy was around for a long time. This guy's name is Bruce Cockburn. He was born in Ottawa right after World War II. He started playing in the mid to late 60s. He's been called the Canadian Bob Dylan, except he can sing a little better than Bob Dylan. His lyrics have both political and religious allusions in them. So he primarily does folk and folk rock. In the 80s, he had a hit in the United States called If I Had a Rocket Launcher. He actually went on the Amnesty International tour with Sting and U2. Other known songs he does are Lovers in a Dangerous Time, Wondering Where the Lions Are, and Listen for the Laugh, which was a big hit in the mid-90s. Not big hit, a minor hit in the 90s. So a couple of his albums that I would suggest: Catching Fire, which is where Lovers in a Dangerous Time and If I Had a Rocket Launcher's from, and then Dancing in the Lion's Jaws, which, by the way, is a biblical allusion to Daniel in the Lion's Den. See, there's some religious content going on here. Hey, Bruce Cockburn, he's from Ottawa. Still plays, still makes music. This next band here, they're from Toronto. They're called Blue Rodeo. They formed in 1984, but if you grew up in Canada in the early 90s, you probably had their song Lost Together played at your senior prom. It's one of those slow ballads. If we're lost and we are lost together. I almost tried to learn it on my ukulele this week, but I didn't have enough time. All the media I've read on them describes them as like country rock, sounding like the Eagles. To me, they're country rock, but they sound more like Neil Young, Harvest, and Harvest Moon type of stuff. So they had this one album called 5 Days in July, but the big song off that was called 5 Days in May, and it starts out with this Neil Young-ish harmonica. Other songs from that are Hasn't Hit Me Yet, Head Over Heels. Really like that album. Very Harvest Moon, harvesty sounding. Then the next album they came out with was called Nowhere to Hear. I think that's something more like Crazy Horses, Neil Young, Girl in Green, Side of the Road, Better Off As We Are. So Canadian country rock, classic rock, 70s, Eagle-ish, Neil Young, harvesty sounding band. Still around. They put out a Christmas album a couple years ago. And I heard they're getting ready to release another album. I'd love to see them on tour. I've seen them twice. Once I saw them at this bar in Buffalo. Did some nice little jams. And then I saw them in Fort York, which is this War of 1812 era fort in downtown Toronto. And they played a concert in the Commons area of Fort York in Toronto. It was really, really cool show. One of the bands they played with at that Fort York show was these guys. This is 5440, and they're from British Columbia, which is on the west coast. Their name, 5440, little Kit Hutchinson history teacher lesson for you. 5440 is a slogan from a border dispute between Canada and the United States in the 1800s. U.S. President Polk, he wanted to extend the U.S. border up to the 5440 parallel. Canada didn't want it that high, and ended up being at the 49th parallel where it is today, but this band took their name from that dispute. Their best known song is a song called I Go Blind, but not because they did it. The best known song is I Go Blind because Hootie and the Blowfish covered it for the Friends soundtrack. So if you have the Friends soundtrack, you'll probably hear the Hootie and the Blowfish, you will definitely hear the Hootie and the Blowfish version of their song I Go Blind. But they themselves, big in Canada, they've released 14 albums. They have a great song I love, it's a real rocker called Baby Ran. But my favorite two albums by 5440 are this one, Since When. It's got a nice little keyboardy feel on it. Songs on that are Since When, the title cut, You Should Come Over, The Last People on Earth, really great album if you can find it. The other album by 5440 I like is Smiling Buddha Cabaret. There's our little Smiling Buddha. When I was in Ottawa, living in Ottawa, the song Ocean Pearl off this album was a huge hit. Still is. They play that song in concert still. I saw them at a free concert in Niagara Falls, and the audience sang lyrics to Ocean Pearl instead of them. Got two more bands to tell you about, just to let the people outside know. Two more bands. These guys right here. This band here is Big Sugar. They're led by this guy, Gordie Johnson, who's from Winnipeg, but the band itself was formed in Toronto. He's the only mainstay of the band. Every other member of the band has come and gone, but he's still in the band. He plays guitar, vocals, keyboards, does all the writing of their songs. They started out as a blues band, and they have this song that I consider my summer theme song called Sleep In Late. But it started out as a blues band, but they've evolved. They have elements of hard rock in them now, elements of reggae, some prog rock, some folk, even some funk. My favorite two albums by Big Sugar are this one, called Brothers and Sisters, Are You Ready? And there's actually a French version of this, and don't ask me to pronounce the French name, but it's the same album, but all the songs have French lyrics. And the other album I like is called Heavy Vision, but Brothers and Sisters, Are You Ready? Contains a song called Nashville Grass, which is a tribute to the late bass player for Government Mule, Alan Woody, the first bass player who passed away. Big Sugar opened for Government Mule a couple times, and after Alan Woody died, Corey Johnson wrote a song for him called Nashville Grass, which makes a lot of reference to Allman Brothers and Government Mule songs. And Gordon Johnson has actually produced a few Government Mule records, so that's why I keep up with these guys. Heavy Vision, Digging a Hole, it's on that. Another song, great harmonica fill, called If I Had My Way. So look up Big Sugar, especially if you're a Government Mule fan. I don't know any Government Mule fans around here at all, so I wouldn't know why they would want to listen to that one. One more that I'm going to talk to you guys about, just to let everybody know back there. These guys are a quintessential Canadian band. I would ask, does anyone know, can anyone put in the comments who these guys are? These guys are from Kingston, Ontario. These guys are the Tragically Hip. A lot of people, when they think of Canadian rock, they think of these guys. They've been called Canada's REM. However, if you're in Canada, REM's called America's Tragically Hip. This band in Canada, they were so huge in Canada that when their lead singer, this guy, Gordon Downey, he actually unfortunately got terminal brain cancer and passed away, and they announced their last tour was going to be the last tour. They're such a big band that CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, broadcast their final concert live for free. The Prime Minister was there. They're such a big band that when he actually did pass away, there was a moment of silence in Canadian Parliament. The Toronto Maple Leafs, they wrote a song about a Toronto Maple Leafs player who died after scoring the game-winning goal of the Stanley Cup. The Toronto Maple Leafs, after he died, they lowered the guy's banner in the rafters for the rest of the season. As I said, very important Canadian band. A lot of their songs, I can see why they didn't make it big in the U.S., but a lot of their songs have Canadian themes. Like I said, there's a song called 50 Mission Cap, which is about hockey. There's another song called Wheat Kings, which is about Regina, Saskatchewan, Canadian prairies. They have a song called Bob Gagnon. Bob Gagnon is a town in Ontario. They named the song after that. Another song they have called is At the 100th Meridian. It's about living up in northern Canada. These guys are so big in Canada, they'll sell out stadiums and arenas. But then when they come to the U.S., maybe they'll sell out a bar. Or when they did, they don't tour anymore. But I remember in Woodstock 99, before Woodstock 99 went up in flames, that afternoon, Tragically Hip played Woodstock 99. And I remember being there, and all of a sudden, Canadian flags everywhere. It's like you were in downtown Toronto with these guys playing. So, I would suggest, if you want to get into the Tragically Hip, their album Fully Completely, which has 50 Mission Cap, one of my favorite songs, and Wheat Kings on it. And then the other one I would suggest is Day for Night, which has Nautical Disaster, a song about a Canadian shipwreck, and Grace 2. They actually played on Saturday Night Live, and they played that on Saturday Night Live, those two songs. So, just before I go, got some questions for you. There's our Canadian flag. I almost brought my ukulele and played O Canada tonight. I should have. I should have. So what do you think, guys? In the comments below, let us know what you think about, what do you think of these Canadian artists? And also, are there other underrated Canadian artists that you like that I didn't mention? So let me know, and I'd love to hear about some more bands. I love to hear about new bands all the time, so let me know. Okay, that's it for today, and just before I go, I just want to tell everybody, we're talking about Canadian artists. I know he's famous, but remember, keep on rocking in the free world, okay? Woo!